are quite lucky to have found it available.
It was very seldom that mere ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls for the summer. A colonial mansion, a hereditary estate. I would say a haunted house in which the heights of romantic felicity, but that would be asking too much of fate.
There is something queer about it. Else, why would it be let so cheaply, and why have stood so long untenanted?
John laughs at me, of course, but one expected that in marriage.
Something about the heirs and the co-heirs. Tedious legal details you need not bother yourself with, my dear one. But we have secured it for the whole summer.
That spoils my ghostliness, I'm afraid. But I don't care. There is something strange about the house. I can feel it. John is practical in the extreme. He has no patience with faith, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talk about to be seen and felt and put down in figures.
It is the most beautiful place. It makes me think of English places that you read about, with all the hedges and walls and gates that lock, and such a delicious garden. It is a shame the greenhouses are so broken down.
The place has been empty for years.
John is a physician, and perhaps, I would not say this to a living soul, of course, but this is dead paper and a great relief to my mind. Perhaps that is why I do not get well faster.
The house is so lovely, John, but this room, let's take the one downstairs that opens on the piazza with roses over the windows and those pretty old-fashioned chintz hangings.
Out of the question, my darling.
If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter with one but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency, what is one to do?
There was not room for 2 beds, or another near room if I should need to take another.
I suppose so, John.
I have a scheduled prescription for each hour in the day. He takes all care from me, and so I feel basically ungrateful not to value it more.
You know we came here solely on your account, so that you might have perfect rest and all the air you can get.
It is a big, airy room. The whole floor nearly, I should judge.
So I take phosphates, or phosphites, whichever it is, and air, and tonics, and journeys, and exercise, and am absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again.
Your exercise depends on your strength, and your food somewhat on your appetite, but air you can absorb all the time.
Personally, I disagree with their ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. But what is one to do? I do write a little in spite of them, but it does exhaust me a great deal, having to be so sly about it or else meet with heavy opposition.
I suppose that this was a playroom and then a gymnasium. The windows are barred for little children, and the paper looks as if a boys' school had used it.
Been stripped off the paper in great patches all around the head of my bed, about as far as I can reach. And in a great place low down. I never saw worse paper in my life.
One of those sprawling, flamboyant patterns, committing every artistic sin.
It is pronounced enough to constantly irritate and provoke study. And when you follow the lame, uncertain curves for a little distance, they suddenly commit suicide, plunge off at outrageous angles, destroy themselves in unheard of contradictions.
The color is repellent, almost revolting.
A smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow-turning sunlight. It is a dull yet lurid orange in some places, a sickly sulfur in others.
No wonder the children hated it.
I should hate it myself if I had to live in this room long. There comes John, and I must put this away. He hates to have me write a word.
I make use of every grade of rest, from repose on the lounge for some hours up to entire rest in bed. I do not permit the patient to sit up or to sew or to write or read or use the hands in any active way except to brush the teeth.
We've been here for 2 weeks, and I haven't felt like writing before since that first day. I'm by the window now up in this atrocious nursery, and there's nothing to hinder my writing as much as I please, save a lack of strength. There is something strange about the house. I can feel it. I even said so to John one moonlit evening.
My dear, it's only a draft.
I get unreasonably angry with John sometimes.
I am sure I never used to be so sensitive.
My silly goose.
I think it is due to this nervous condition.
If you feel so, my dear one, you shall neglect proper self-control.
So I take pains to control myself, before him at least, and that makes me very tired. John does not know how much I really suffer. He knows there is no reason to suffer, and that satisfies him.
Do you go away again tomorrow?
Yes, all day and possibly the night as well. One of my cases is becoming quite serious.
I'm glad my case is not serious.
I meant to be such a help to you, John. Such a real rest and comfort. Here I am, a comparative burden already.
Nobody would believe what an effort it is to do what little I am able, to dress and entertain and other things.
It is fortunate that Jenny is so good with the baby. Such a dear baby.
And yet I cannot be with him. It makes me so nervous. I suppose John never was nervous in his life.
Is your serious case in a room with such horrid wallpaper?
You and this wallpaper.
It is only that you do not have to see it every day and night, John, that you do not understand.
You are letting
You did mean at first to repaper.
you are letting it get the better of you, my dear one.
There is nothing worse for a nervous patient than to give in to such fancies. The re-education elements of the cure involve educating by whatever means to which she responds. Principles of philosophy, patience, resignation, or consolation. Above all, she must be taught to regain and preserve domination of her emotions and avoid any loss of self-control.
After the wallpaper, it would have been the heavy bedstead, and then the gate at the head of the stairs, and then the bars on the windows, on and on.
To ensure complete rest, the patient must be removed from her usual environment. To eliminate any possible sources of worry and anxiety, all news from home should be carefully censored. This environment must be stable and without any disruptive changes for the length of the cure.
You know the place is doing you good, and besides, I don't care to renovate just for a 3 months rental.
He is right enough about the beds and windows and things.
Then let's go downstairs. There are such pretty rooms there.
My silly goose. We can go down to the cellar if you wish, and I will even have it whitewashed into the bargain.
No, it is airy and comfortable here as anyone need wish. And I would not be so silly as to make you uncomfortable for a whim. I really am getting quite fond of the big room.
Oh, that horrid paper.
Out of the window I can see the gardens, those mysterious deep-shaded arbors. There's even a beautiful shaded lane that runs down from there to the house, and I always fancy I see people walking in those numerous paths.
My dear, you must not give way to fancy in the least.
John.
With your imaginative powers and habit of story making, a nervous weakness is sure to lead to all manner of excited fancies.
Sometimes I think that if I were only well enough to write a little, I could relieve the press of ideas and rest me.
But I find I get pretty tired when I try.
I only wish you would use your goodwill and sense to check the tendency.
So I try. It is so discouraging not to have any advice and companionship about my work.
Perhaps when you are well, we will have Cousin Julia and Henry down for a long visit.
Not sooner.
I would as soon put firecrackers on your pillows as have those excitable people about now.
I wish I could get well faster.
Perhaps some company would do you good. We'll have Nellie and the children down for a week on the 4th of July.
This paper looks to me as if it knew what a vicious influence it had.
A woman's body has a finite amount of energy with which to devote upon all of her vital functions. When any of that energy is diverted away from its primary reproductive function, such as education or work outside the home, or even the deceptively tamer-looking work of writing, her reproductive system must suffer. It is perhaps therefore unsurprising that with the rise in education among women and the rise in the diseases in women, almost all of which radiate from the uterus, that it has had a disastrous effect on the health of the American woman.
There is a recurrent spot where the pattern lolls like a broken neck, bulbous eyes stare at you upside down.
I get positively angry with the impertinence of it and everlastingness. Up and down and sideways they crawl. Those absurd unblinking eyes are everywhere. I never saw so much expression in an inanimate thing before, and we all know how much expression they have. I used to lie awake as a child and get more entertainment and terror out of blank walls and plain furniture than most children could find in a toy store. I remember what a kindly wink the knobs of our big old bureau used to have, and there was always one chair that seemed to be a strong friend. I used to feel that if any of the other things got too fierce,
I could always hop in that chair and be safe. The furniture in this room is no more worse than inharmonious.
I never saw such ravages as the children have made here. The paper, as I said before, is stripped off in places, and it sticketh closer than a brother.
They must have had perseverance as well as hatred.
Then the floor is scratched and gouged and splintered. The plaster itself is dug out here and there, and this great heavy bed, which is all we found in the room, looks as if it had been through the wars. But I don't mind.
Only the paper. This paper has a kind of sub-pattern in a different shade, a particularly irritating one, for you can only see it in certain lights. But in places where it isn't faded, and where the sun is just so, I can see a strange, provoking, formless sort of figure that seems to skulk about behind that silly and conspicuous front design. There comes Jenny.
Such a dear girl she is, and so careful of me. I must not let her find me writing.
I verily believe she thinks it is the writing which made me sick.
But I can always write when she is out. I can always see her out the window and hear her in the halls.
There she is on the stairs.
Well, the 4th of July is over. The people are gone and I am tired out. Of course, I didn't do a thing. Jimmy sees to everything now. But it tired me all the same.
Do try to rest today, my dear one. If you do not wake up faster, I shall have to send you to Ware Mitchell in the fall. I cannot recommend any other man so highly. One of his patients just rhapsodized on his potency. Mrs. S. describes a thrill which passed through her when she finally saw him. A true physician. I am truly a poor substitute, not able to be firm enough with my dear Bruce.
But I don't go there at all.
I had a friend who was in his hands
And
once.
she says he is just like John, only more so.
Well, there you have it.
It would be such an undertaking to go so far.
I don't feel as if it is worth my while to turn my head over for anything. And I'm getting dreadfully fretful and querulous. I cry at nothing and cry most of the time. Of course, I don't when John is here. Or anybody else for that matter. But when I'm alone. And I'm alone a good deal just now. I really am becoming quite fond of the room in spite of the wallpaper. Perhaps because of the wallpaper, it dwells in my mind so. I lie here on this great immovable bed, it is nailed down, I believe, and follow that pattern about by the hour. I start, we'll say, in the corner, down over there where it has not been touched, and I determine for the 1000th time that I will
Follow that pointless pattern to some sort of a conclusion.
I know a little of the principles of design, and I know this thing was not arranged on any laws of
Radiation, alternation, repetition, symmetry.
or anything else that I ever heard of. Looked at it in one way, the bloated curves and flourishes.
A kind of debased Romanesque with delirium tremors.
But on the other hand, they connect diagonally, and the sprawling outlines run off in great, optic waves of horror, like a bunch of wallowing seaweeds in full chase. When the crosslights fade and the sun shines directly upon it,
I can almost fancy radiation after all. The interminable grotesques seem to form around a common center and rush off in headlong plunges of equal distraction.
it makes me tired to follow it. I don't know why I should write this. I don't want to. I don't feel able. And I know John would think it absurd. But I must say what I feel and think in some way it is such a relief. Half the time now I am awfully lazy and rest ever so much. John says I
My
mustn't
dear,
lose my
you must
strength.
let yourself
It has to
be
take
scared.
cod liver oils and lots of
Don't
tonics
make
and
that
things.
face, my silly goose.
To say nothing of
You really
ale
touched
and
your
wine
dear.
and rare meat.
Although the relationship between adipose tissues and the general state of health is not yet fully understood, it is self-evident truth that each person should have the surplus fat to fight moral and mental strains and fevers. I fear it is a physical failure, particularly prone to city-bred women, to be so thin and have lost their capacity to produce healthy children.
Dear John, he loves me very dearly and hates to have me sick. I tried to have a real, earnest, reasonable talk with him the other day and tell him how I wish we could go down to make a visit to Cousin Henry
Just
and
a change of
Julia.
place.
But he said I was able to go, or able to stand it after I got
And
there.
if you did arrive, what would you do?
And I did not make out a
John,
very
please,
gracious
Exact
act.
comes from all of my patients to fight.
For I was
every
crying before I even
desire,
started.
pride,
It is getting to be a great effort for me to think straight.
to
Just this
control
nervous
their
weakness, I suppose.
excessive
And dear
maternal
John took me in
impulse.
his arms and just
Women,
tucked me
above
into
all,
bed and
should be
sat by
careful
me and read to me
sharing their
till it
feelings
tired
with
my
others.
head.
A habit that not only makes matters worse, but ultimately bores the listener. There is nothing worse to it. Women are too emotionally expressive, perhaps even hysterical, and certainly prone to inappropriate displays of feeling that threatens to their physical endurance. The habit of yielding too easily to the expression of all or any feelings, or of cultivating to excess the upward manifestation of this feeling.
It is comfort and
And
all
Indeed,
that.
it is believed by
And
the
for his sake,
medical
let us take care of it
to
well.
be the
He said no one but myself could do it.
of nervous
That I
disorder.
must use
In
my
short,
Self-control will
There
be
is
self-control.
one
must
comfort.
be control.
The baby is well and happy. Does not have to occupy this nursery with the horrid wallpaper.
What a fortunate escape! Why, I wouldn't have a child of mine, an impressionable little thing, live in such a room for worlds. I never thought of it before, but it is quite lucky John kept me here after all. I can stand it so much easier than a baby, you see. There are things in that paper that nobody knows but me, or ever will. Of course, I never mention it to them anymore,
I am too wise.
but I keep watching it all the same.
Behind that dim pattern, the shapes get clearer every day. And his is the same shape, only very numerous. And it is like a woman, stooping down and creeping about behind that front pattern.
I don't like it a bit.
I wonder, I begin to think. I wish John would take me away from here.
It's so hard to talk with John about my case,
Because he is so wise and because he loves me so.
but I tried it last night. It was moonlight. I hate to see it sometimes. It creeps in so slowly by the window. John was asleep, and I hated to waken him, so I kept still and watched the moonlight on that undulating wallpaper till I felt creepy. The faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern, just as if she wanted to get out. I went to see if the paper did move, and when I came back, John was awake. I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him that I really was not gaining here, and that I wished he would take me away.
My darling, our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before then. The repairs are not done at home, and I cannot possibly leave town just now. If you were in any danger, I could and would. But really, dear, you are better, whether you can see it or not. I am a doctor, dear, and I know you are gaining flesh and color, and your appetite is better. I really feel much easier about you.
I don't weigh a bit more.
And my appetite may be better in the evening when you are here, but it is worse in the morning when you are away.
Bless her little heart. She shall be as sick as she pleases. Now come, let us improve the shining hours by going to sleep, and talk about it in the morning.
And you won't go away?
Why, how can I, dear? It is only 3 weeks more, and then we will take a nice little trip of a few days while Jenny gets the house ready. Really, dear, you are better.
Better in body, perhaps.
My dear, I beg of you, for my sake and our child's sake, as well as your own, that you never for one instant let that thought enter your mind. There is nothing so dangerous, so fascinating to a temperament such as yours. It is a false and foolish fancy. Can you not trust me as a physician when I tell you so?
So I said no more on that score, and we went to sleep before long. He thought I was asleep, but I wasn't, and lay there for hours, trying to determine if the front pattern and the back pattern really did move together or separate. There's a lack of sequence, a defiance of law that is a constant irritant to a normal mind. The color is hideous enough, and unreliable enough, and infuriating enough, but the pattern is torturing.
Just when you think you have mastered it, it turns a back somersault, and there you are. It is like a bad dream.
That is, sometimes. There's a marked peculiarity about this paper, a thing nobody seems to notice but myself, and that is that it changes as the light changes. When the sun shoots in through the window, I always watch for that first long, straight ray. It changes so quickly I can hardly believe it.
That is why I watch it always.
By moonlight, I wouldn't know it was the same paper.
And by night, in any kind of light, it becomes bars. The front pattern, I mean. And the woman behind is as plain as can be.
I never realized before what the thing was that showed behind, that dim sub-pattern, but now I'm quite sure it's a woman.
By daylight, she is subdued, quiet. I fancy it is the pattern that keeps her so still. It is so puzzling, it keeps me quiet by the hour.
I lie down ever so much now. John says it is good for me and to sleep all I can. Indeed, he started the habit by making me lie down for an hour after each meal. It's a very bad habit, I'm convinced, for you see, I don't sleep. And that cultivates deceit, for I don't tell him I'm awake.
Oh, no.
The fact is, I'm getting a little afraid of John. He seems very queer now, and even Jenny has an inexplicable look. It strikes me occasionally, just as a scientific hypothesis,
That perhaps it is the paper.
I have watched John when he was not looking, and have come into the room on the most innocent of excuses.
I've caught him looking at the paper. And Jenny, too. I caught Jenny
With her hand on it once. She didn't know I was in the room.
And when I asked her in a quiet,
A very quiet
voice what she was doing with the paper, she turned around as if she'd been caught stealing and looked quite angry. Asked me
Why does she frighten you so? The paper stains everything it touches. I've even found yellow smooches on all of yours and John's clothes. I do wish you both would be more careful.
Did not that sound innocent? But I know she was studying that pattern, and I am determined that no one shall find it out but myself.
Life is very much more exciting now than it used to be. You see, I have something more to expect, to look forward to watch. I really do eat better and am more quiet than I was. John is so pleased to see me improve.
He laughed a little the other day and said I seemed to be flourishing in spite of my wallpaper. I turned it off with a laugh. I had not intention of telling him it was because of the wallpaper. He would make fun of me and might even want to take me away. But I don't want to go now. Not until I have found it out. There is a week more, and I think that will be enough.
I'm feeling ever so much better now. I don't sleep much at night, for you see, it's so interesting to watch developments. But I do sleep a good deal in the daytime. There's something else about that paper.
The smell.
I noticed it the moment we walked into the room, but with so much air and sun, it was not so bad. Now we've had a week of fog and rain, and whether the window is open or not, the smell is here.
It creeps all over the house, hovering in the dining room, skulking in the parlor, lying in wait for me on the stairs, and it gets into my head. hair.
Such a peculiar odor, too. I have spent hours in trying to analyze it to find out what it smelled like. In this damp weather, it is awful. It used to disturb me at first. I thought seriously of
Burning the house.
to reach the smell, but now I'm used to it. The only thing that I can think of that it is
The color of the paper. A yellow smell.
there's a very funny mark on this wall, low down near the mopboard, a streak that runs around the room. It goes behind every piece of furniture,
Except the bed.
a long, straight, even smooch, just as if it had been rubbed.
Over and over.
I wonder how it got there, and who did it, and what they did it for. Round and round and
Round and round. It makes me dizzy.
I really have discovered something at last. Through watching the paper at night when it changes so, I have finally found out
The front pattern does move.
and no wonder the woman behind shakes it. Sometimes I think there are a great many women, and sometimes only one. And she crawls around fast, and her crawling shakes it all over.
And then in the very bright spots, she keeps still.
And in the very shady spot, she just grabs hold of the bars and shakes them hard. And she is all the time trying to climb through.
But nobody can climb through that pattern. It strangles so. Perhaps that is why it has so many heads. They get through, and then the pattern strangles them off and turns them upside down and makes their eyes white.
If those heads were covered or taken off, it wouldn't be half so bad.
I think that woman gets out in the daytime.
And I'll tell you why, privately. I've seen her. I can see her out my window.
It is the same woman I know, for she is always creeping, and most women do not creep by daylight. It must be very humiliating to be caught creeping by daylight. I always lock the door when I creep by daylight. I can't do it at night, for I know John would suspect something at once. John is so queer now.
I don't want to irritate him.
I wish he would take another room.
Besides, I don't want anyone to get that woman out at night but myself. If only the top pattern could be gotten off from the other one.
I mean to try it, little by little.
I found something else out, but
I shan't tell it at this time.
it does not do to trust people too much.
Oh,
There are 2 more days to get this paper off, and I think John's beginning to notice.
I don't like the look in his eyes.
The patient, if this nervous complaint is left unchecked, may become a changed woman. Irritable, indecisive, lacking in willpower. Morose, jealous. She may show a guarded cunning, a deceitful, and perverted conscience.
And I heard him ask Ginny a lot of professional questions about me. She had a very good report tonight.
John knows I don't sleep well at night, for all I'm so quiet.
He asked me questions too, and pretended to be very loving and kind.
As if I could not see through him.
Still, it isn't a wonder he acts so.
Sleeping under this paper for 3 months.
It only affects me, but I feel John and Ginny are secretly affected by it.
Hurrah!
This is the last day, but it is enough. John is to stay in town overnight. Ginny wanted to sleep with me,
You sly thing.
but I told her I should undoubtedly rest better for a night all alone.
That was clever.
For really, I wasn't alone a bit. As soon as it was moonlight,
That poor
I
thing.
began to crawl and shake the cat, and I got up and ran to help her.
And I pulled. She shook it. She shook it. I pulled.
In my day,
We peeled off yards of that paper.
and then, when the sun came up and that awful pattern was I declared
I will finish it today.
we go away tomorrow, and they have taken all my furniture to leave the room as it was.
Jenny looked at the walls in amazement.
But I told her merrily that I had done it out of pure spite at the vicious thing.
She laughed.
And said she wouldn't mind doing it herself, but I mustn't get tired.
Oh, how she betrayed herself at that time. But I am here, and no person touches this paper. Not alive.
She tried to get me out of the room. It was too patterned, but I told her it was so clean and quiet and empty now that I believed I would lie down and rest all I could. And not to wake me, even for dinner. I would call
down.
I quite enjoy the room now that it is bare again.
Help me! How those children did tear about in here.
Please let me out.
This bedstead is fairly used.
Please let me out. Please, please.
But I must get to work.
I have locked the door and thrown the key into the front path.
I don't want to go out, and I don't want to have anyone come in.
Till John comes.
I want to astonish him.
This bed will not move! I tried to lift it and push it until I was lame. And then I got so angry that I bit off a piece in one corner, but it hurt my teeth. And then I peeled off all the paper I could, but it sticks horribly and the pattern just enjoys it. All those strangled heads and bulbous eyes just shriek with derision. I'm getting angry enough to do something desperate.
To jump out of the window would be an admirable exercise, but the bars are too strong even to try.
Besides, I wouldn't do it.
Of course not. For I know a move like that is improper and might be misconstrued.
I don't like to look out of the window even. There are so many of those creeping women and they creep so fast.
I wonder if they've all come out of the wallpaper, as I did. I suppose I shall have to get back behind the pattern when it comes night, and that is hard. It is so great to be out in this pleasant room, and I don't want to go outside. For outside, you have to creep on the ground, and everything is green instead of yellow. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor, and my shoulder fits in that long smooch around the wall, so I cannot lose my way. Oh, why, there's John at the door.
It's no use, young man.
You can't open it.
Darling! Darling!
Oh, how he does call and pound.
Give me an axe!
It would be a shame to break down that beautiful door.
An axe!
John here. The key is down by the front steps, under a plain tabling.
Please, darling, open the door!
I can't.
The key is down by the